Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
If you like paranormal, true crime, cryptids, or anything else weird, check out the Outros That a Ghost podcast brought to you by your host Liz. You can find Outros That a Ghost on Spotify, Apple, or any other audio platform. New episodes drop every Thursday.
Clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. Hope everybody's having a killer weekend so far. Well, it's quiet here for once where I'm at, so I've just been drilling the coffee, Timmy, doing some podcast research. I was also brainstorming, a few tales for you guys, because I wanted to go, the route of, some wilderness shit, because I did some stuff not too long ago on that. Just some crazy deaths, some bad encounters, because, there's all sorts of ways to meet your end in, the wilderness, or in life for that matter, which is shortly followed by death. And I do want to thank you guys for tuning back in here, because without you guys, I'd just be talking to my fucking self. So, tonight's tale, I'm going to give you some wilderness shit. So, pitter patter. I guess the most popular would be, being mauled by a bear or whatever. I guess we can just dive right into that one. Now, many bears populate the Canadian Rockies of Alberta. There's Banff, there's Jasper National Parks. These are high spots for spotting bears. Now, mostly from April to November, when the bears emerge from hibernation in search for food. So British Columbia has 13,000 grizzly bears. So, you're always going to see them around. They also have a nature preserve called the Great Bear Rainforest. Now, this covers 6.4 million hectares of British Columbia, north and central coast mostly. Although, it's actually equivalent to the size of Ireland. No shit, eh? So, pretty cool facts. So this spot is, well protected, too. There's local First Nations in the surrounding area, and they help out with, other people throughout BC to keep it safe. Because, it has, stunning landscapes and everything, too. There's, waterways, there's tons of wildlife. There's also death. And not only deaths by, animals happen or whatever, there's a couple tales here that I found about 2 grizzly bear cubs that were run over and left for dead. And it sucks, man. People suck. Animals sometimes suck. So, bears in that area, for them to die from, human-related causes, that's insane. This was back in 2019. Minus the whole hunting season, whatever, too, right? Well, when everybody went up to investigate, there were tracks and blood on the road, and the bears had most likely traveled up the road, crossing the bridge, because that's the way they go, they follow creeks to follow the salmon and everything. And the salmon also helps fill up, other communities, too, so bears would pass through them, too, because they would sell their fish or trade them off or whatever, right? So, the bears, they'll look for in these, little tent villages or whatever for garbage, smokehouses, stuff like that, because civilization just catches the salmon and uses all the other resources that they find too, salmon being the most steady supply of everything. So I guess they just need to be very weary of the whole wildlife that roams around, because like I said, they follow the streams, and yeah, so always be on the lookout, right? There's always unexpected bear attacks and everything at random, not all the time. And there's a couple places here up in BC here. There's Inerson Lake, And there was an event here that happened with a bear attack on November 26, 2019. Now, there was a bear that was searching for food, and this guy was like an 18-year-old male grizzly. So this guy come out of hibernation, and he ate a porcupine, and then the quills ended up penetrating the poor guy's digestive tract. Now, Valerie Thirette, she was 37 years old, and her 10-month-old child were killed by this guy. He had to try to avoid starvation when he got out of hibernation and everything, so he ate that porcupine, which totally messed up his insides, and he couldn't eat anything else, so he was frantically searching for food. And he came upon the family here in their remote cabin up in the Yukon. So the starvation kind of caused this guy, he ended up going down to 302 pounds, and this brought him very close to starvation and everything, right? He was a lot bigger at the other time, right? So the quills ended up piercing this bear's stomach. This caused him great pain, discomfort, and then it's believed that he followed the snowmobile tracks back to their cabin. And then the husband, his name was Germund Roselt, so he was away checking nearby fur traps. And this place was remote, and it was 400 kilometers away from the territory's capital of Whitehorse. Then the bear spotted his wife and kid, and he attacked them in the absence of that guy. Shortly after here, investigators and examiners that checked out the scene later on, they said that she didn't even have time to react, and then the bear attacked. Now, when the husband got back there, because he was away checking those fur traps, he noticed the bear right away, because it just started charging right at him. So he scrambled, and he shot off a gun 4 times, and he killed it. So shortly after, he made the horrific discovery of his wife and child. And even though the family had taken precautions, they kept their food sources away from the cabin, they stored bait across the river, and the bear and its porcupine encounter there had caused him just to be so hungry that this rare attack had happened. And there's just very little that could have been done to prevent it. Now, a government investigation had concluded that although it was a great tragedy, the attack was unpreventable. And it sucks, so many encounters like this happen, but I mean, just like many other tales, we hear about them, right? Not all of them are good. And even besides the woods, which can also be a dangerous place in itself, what about, the times you're out in, kinda little marshlands and stuff like that, and you unknowingly fall victim to some quicksand or something like that, right? These are very, very, very rare, but they do happen. You'd have to venture near swamps, lake shores, or other riverbanks and shit like that, but there's quicksand in Canada and the United States. Southern Ontario actually is where it's located in Canada, and the United States, it's kind of common around Florida. There's canyons in southern Utah, New Mexico, northern Arizona. And it's not just located in the desert like it's portrayed in cartoons and stuff that we watch, or movies and whatnot. So a lot of it is in movie form, it's oh hey, there's quicksand in this desert and stuff, right? But they're actually found near natural wells or shallow underground water, stuff like that. So it kind of makes the sand around it dissolve and become a gel-like form. Now, quicksand is basically just ordinary sand that has been very saturated with water. And the friction between the sand particles and everything gets reduced, so that makes it into a mushy mixture. And that's just a sand, water, and it can no longer support any weight or anything, right? So that's why you start sinking inside and shit. And like I mentioned, you pretty much just see people die from quicksand deaths in movies. Honestly, searching quicksand deaths had brought me to absolutely jack shit, because it's not as dangerous as I thought. Thank you, movies, for making me think that it was. Not only is it fucking just a big nuisance, it's totally almost unheard of, but it does happen, and I already had stuff written down about this, so I had to dig for some tales on this. Uh, Here you go. Now, in 2015, a man from Texas died after becoming stuck in quicksand. This was on the San Antonio River. Now, his name was Jose Ray Escobedo. Now, he was 50 years old. He went missing one morning, and then he was found 3 days later, lodged in quicksand. And I guess, like, if you're caught in there, like, you start to move very slowly, you can get out, right? You just don't panic and shit, right? Because the packed sand will collapse and then become liquid, and then you'll start to sink. It's just hard to drown in it, but, like, it does happen, and this guy did drown in it. Like, you'll get stuck in dense sand grains. It kind of makes it difficult to get out. Wiggling out very slowly, like I said, can help. Don't really struggle. Keep your movements controlled, because motion can kind of cause the sand to liquefy, and then it makes it harder to escape. I mean, you can struggle if you want. I mean, it's your choice, but I mean, I prevent against that. So this Jose guy here kind of got caught up in this, and then he died in this rare case. It's a scary little dilemma if you find yourself in that situation, I bet. Now, here's another one here. 2019. Now, a guy named Ryan Osman, he was hiking near a remote Utah canyon with his missus. So his leg got caught up in quicksand. And this was along North Creek up at Zion National Park. Now, he eventually became unable to free himself, and he was stuck in that bad boy for some 12 hours. Now, this was during winter time, and when rescuers actually found this guy, he had hypothermia from exposure to the freezing conditions. So hypothermia here, like, that'll take a lot of energy out of you, because the brain tells your body to preserve, like, your core, right? So the blood slows down, and this gives you, like, less strength, less control. Your muscles start to slow down, making it wicked hard to get out. Sometimes this is dubbed as, like, quicksand snow. And during the time that he was trapped in here, his girlfriend, Jessica McNeil, she had left to go get a cell signal because they couldn't call out. It wasn't the best thing that she ever wanted to do. Like, she didn't want to leave this guy or anything, right? But it wasn't overly, like, frozen ground yet that winter. Like, it was kind of just wet weather, which made a factor in this ordeal because he was trapped, like, also within a little bit of cold water to boot, right? Now, it took his girlfriend a couple hours before she got far enough to get cell signal. She eventually got a call out, and he was rescued some hours later. And it was snowing very heavily when they kind of got back, because it was like a upcoming storm or whatever. So a helicopter was sent to go help him get him out. They got him out of that location. The next day after being rescued, he got checked out, and then he was flown to a hospital where he later recovered. So good for him. He got out of there, he recovered, everything's all good. So, oddly enough, we found a story on a death in quicksand and a rescue story. And like sands through the hourglass, so are the sands that will rarely kill you. Now, other tales I have here, like, there's a bunch. Like, you can fall off a fucking mountain. You can fall off a cliff. Up at Half Dome here, Yosemite Park, this is a large mass of, like, intrusive rock. It's larger than 100 kilometers, in an area. So this one had formed from cooled magma deep within the Earth's crust. So, a batholith, if you will. That's actually just made up of, quartz moissanite. So this puppy here stands at 8,800 feet above sea level, and is solidified several thousand feet into the earth. So 29-year-old Danielle Burnett, she was hiking up here, and she fell. She slipped some 500 feet to her death, and that was it. And some spots here now require hikers to use, like, metal cables so they can pull themselves, like, kind of up towards the granite dome. Now, this is like a known place for deaths, and she was the 12th hiker to perish on this little adventure of hers. Over time, measures were put into place to keep hikers as safe as possible. Like I said, there's cables that are put along the path now. You can hook up to a safety harness. Wood beams are now there so you can steady yourself, and there's like a capped number of daily permits. so this limits the number of people on the trail at the same time. There's also another fall here from another park. This is in Angel's Landing, ironic name, Zion National Park. So a wicked popular hiking trail up in Utah there. Now, they encourage people that aren't experienced to not even try this, but some do. Back in 2017, a 45-year-old named Tate Volino, he was hiking and he lost his footing, same as the last girl, and he fell 1,000 feet to his death. It's a pretty big fall there, man. It's like, I don't know, just be careful. Don't hike if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, stick to trails and nature walks and stuff, I guess. I don't know, just cool little tales here, I guess. Well, not overly cool, but there's some here. Like even up in Rocky Mountain National Park. Crazy little one here. There was a lightning strike, which are fairly common in high altitude areas. Hikers actually should check the weather before like they hike and everything, because they don't want to be caught in a thunderstorm. Because you should find shelter, a low-lying area, anything like that, because you don't want to be out in the rain and then get struck by lightning, which is very rare, but it does happen. And this event happened back in 2014. A group was actually struck by lightning. It killed one and injured 7 others, which is pretty insane how they survived, like, the whole lightning strike ordeal, except for that one guy. Now, even a direct strike, the person becomes a flash channel. This has enormous amounts of energy passing through the body, and this could result in either internal, like burns, bone and nervous system damage. Some reports can be fatal. Some can cause injury. Some can cause impairment. Even like the 7 others that felt that shit through a contact, that's just totally insane too. The amount of electricity that would shoot through you, it would definitely cause some damage for sure. And living to tell that tale would just be electrifying in itself, folks. Now there's also blast injuries too, and this is caused from being thrown from like the shock wave of it. The landing can also be hard on you because it can sometimes cause blunt force trauma. That's how hard you can actually hit the land after being struck by lightning. And like I said, there's all sorts of ways to die out in nature, right? Lightning. Another one, I guess, falling trees and shit, right? I mean, it's rare. Just like the quicksand deaths, I suppose. Now, a 7-year-old girl was up in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She was camping with her dad and 2 other sisters. And while they were all in their tent, a 2-foot wide maple tree had fallen on their tent, and it killed the 7-year-old girl. The rest of the family were totally, physically unhurt. And it was just a random-ass thing. The family was camping up from Georgia, and the National Park Rangers there had responded to the incident. And this was located at the Elkmont Campground at 12:30 a.m. on July 27th, 2022. And it's just a terrible little tale here. I mean, all these crazy things in nature do happen. It sucks, but I mean, some live to tell the tale, others don't. I mean, that's just life, and life isn't always fair, right? I want to get back to the subject of bears here for a sec, so let's talk about the polar variety up in the wilderness. Now, this happened up near the Arctic Svalbard Islands. Now, a tourist was up there back in 2015, so he was in a 6-person group up at a campsite. He had awoken in his tent to a giant polar bear ripping him out of his tent, and then he was later scared off by gunshots. So, a month before this, there was also a French woman, and she was attacked by a bear at a 25-person camp. So I guess, long story short, it doesn't matter how many people you have at a campsite, you're still going to get attacked by bears. And she was only treated for minor injuries. And like little tales like this are pretty crazy. I mean, there's one here too about a guy up in Kentucky. He was up in Red River. So he was on a camping trip with a few of his buddies. He ended up sleepwalking, and he walked over a 60-foot cliff. And his friends, like, they watched him, like, fall asleep on the hammock. Then an hour later, he got out of the hammock, and his friends kind of looked on, and this guy here ended up walking right off the cliff. Miraculously, like 3 hours later, he was like hauled back up and everything, right? Because he had no life-threatening injuries. He did fall 60 feet, mind you, but like he kind of landed in like a little bit of a bushway here. So the guy was rescued by a giant basket that was hoisted down, and then they helped him into the basket and then pulled back up. So it was kind of crazy to see like how far he fell down on his way back up. And this guy here, like I said, like he kind of missed a general area of rocks, so he landed in an area of bushes. And if it wasn't for that, he would have died. And he was taken to a nearby hospital. He was treated for a cut on the back of his head, and he had a chipped vertebrae. But when he was released, not long after, and he was expected to make a full recovery. So, I mean, things do happen in the wilderness, right? Especially if you're tired and you're sleepwalking around. Next tale. So, imagine this one here. You're an awesome hiker. You're totally fit. Life's back to, where you want it or whatever. Life's going good. You plan a hiking trip through an Olympic National Park up in Washington. So you're walking with your wife, your friends. You're taking in all the wicked hiking scenery along your way. When all of a sudden you see a goat, and he's running aggressively towards you. Then what do, right? So this happened to a guy named Robert Boardman. He was 63 years old. So he told the others, hey, like, go on up ahead, I'll take care of this, I'll shoo this guy away or whatever, right? And he did just that. The angry goat ended up, like, charging this guy, and he gored him right in the leg, and then proceeded to just stand over him as the guy lay there crying in pain and bleeding. So, an hour later, he was pelted with rocks until it ran away. So it terrorized that guy for a whole, hour. And why people didn't try to get him away beforehand, I don't know. So the guy was airlifted to a hospital, and he eventually died from his injuries. Park rangers had tracked down the goat, and they shot him. There were some signs that were posted warning hikers to stay 30 feet away from wildlife. Even though this goat literally just walked up on them. The signs will now protect them. And there was a rumor here that park rangers had terrified the goat, prior to this, they were shooting bean bags at it, and people threw rocks at him. Some people fed him, and then the goat would get pissed off and just run at them or whatever, right? Stupid things like that. So, I guess just let wildlife be, folks, I guess, is the moral of the story here. Or he won't have a very goat time. And I am very happy that I got to find these tales for you guys. There's always crazy accidents, crazy deaths all over the world, right? Even sending your kids to summer camp and shit like that, it's a big gamble these days, right? Now up in Canmore, Alberta, there was a 2-year-old that had ended up going missing, and this was at a campground a little west of Calgary. So police, fire, and rescue squads had shown up. They responded to the report of the missing toddler, and they found the 16-month-old in the river a half hour later, and she was transferred to a hospital, and then unfortunately she died the next day. And even sending your kids to summer camp isn't overly safe. I mean, all you have to do is watch Friday the 13th movies to figure that one out too, right? So I mean, there's a lot of tales that revolve around little accidents or things like that, right? So you gotta be weary on where you send your kids, right? And another time here up in Wolford Provincial Park in Lethbridge, Alberta. Now this is located in the old St. Mary's River, and that has trails and wildlife viewing. So a 4-year-old child went missing around the campsite back in 2020. RCMP and Lethbridge Search and Rescue, police dogs, helicopters, volunteers, everything, they all fired up a search, and this went into the evening and overnight. Now 11:30 a.m. rolled around. The child's body was found by an RCMP boat on the sandbar in St. Mary's River. This is just a few kilometers down from the park. And the child's name actually won't be released due to everything that went on with it, right? It's only a kid, right? And it's just a weird little thing here too, because a little ways up the road at another park, campground or whatever, This was 3 weeks earlier. So this is a little south of Lethbridge here. 3 teenage girls had drowned in the St. Mary's River. So they had all been like canoeing with a bunch of friends, and unfortunately the canoe tipped over and they were swept down the river. And this was up at Spring Coulee area, and it's only a 19-minute drive from where this kid was found here, so like 23.5 kilometers away. There's a few tales here from hunting season too. You know, you're out and about, you're tracking, you're waiting, you're enjoying your time in the bush. But in this bizarre case here, this was up in Arkansas. A 66-year-old hunter named Thomas Alexander was hunting deer up in Yellville, and he successfully shot one. So this guy was an experienced hunter. He made his way down from his elevated deer stand and then popped down to check on his kill. So he got a little bit closer to the deer. He ended up propping his gun against the deer stand before he went over. And the deer got back up and attacked this guy pretty hard. So this guy ended up suffering a puncture to like his stomach, everything there. So he was full of like severe puncture wounds. And this happened to be from the deer's antlers. So he was pretty much gored with the deer's antlers. And even though this guy was by himself, he was able to call his family for help. They called emergency responders, and the man had later died at a nearby hospital. And the same thing happened back in 2016. A hunter was gored by the deer's antlers, and this was up in southern Arkansas. And he actually survived this whole ordeal. And these are strange occurrences that do happen to humans from deer in certain situations. But more often than not, they do run away from you. Sometimes a male deer during mating season, a buck, will become aggressive and territorial. And the animal is always on the move, so you'll always see him during this time. And they actually don't like to be bothered, and they can attack you. Deer also become protective of their young. They will attack you if they feel threatened, or that you're going to cause a threat to their fawns or whatever, right? And if deer are encountered, it says here to slowly leave the area. Try not to alert the deer, because they're more likely to attack you from behind. And signs deer are pissed off would be like the tail tucked in, the head is flat, its ears are dropped, stuff like that, right? So try to de-deer yourself from deer and try to stay alive, I guess is the whole thing here. Oh, and I guess also, like, if you're charged by a deer, raise your arms while, like, swinging them, make yourself look bigger, and it should run away. And just use your own judgment, like my advice may or may not save you. I can't be held responsible for the actions of wildlife. So just try and stay safe when you're out and about, folks. And lastly here, folks, we'll talk about some campers that were a little unprepared for their travels. So, there was a discovery made up in Gunnison County. 3 campers from Colorado Springs have been found dead on a remote campground. This was back in 2022. Now, the 3 bodies were found very decomposed, and this was near Gold Creek Camp back in July. So, July 9th, back in 2022. Now, by the condition of their bodies there, they had died back in January, earlier that year. So the family decided to go off the grid. So they wanted to just go live in the elements, and they learned to survive by watching YouTube videos prior to this. And I'll play a little clip on that for you guys here before we fade out and wrap up this episode here. So I'd like to thank you guys very much for tuning back into Twisted Tales. I hope you guys really enjoyed my nature episode, and you have yourself a wonderful rest of your weekend. Take care.
A Colorado Springs family is in shock after finding out the 3 campers found dead at a Gunnison County campsite were their loved ones.
Now, the family is now telling us their relatives wanted to live off the grid, but they were wildly unprepared to do so.
The 3 campers that died were actually from Colorado Springs. The family member I spoke with told me that she begged them not to go, but they couldn't be convinced. This is a picture of them the day they decided to leave 1 year ago in August of 2022, but it would be the final time they would all be together.
I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want my feeling to be true. I was out here in the driveway just walking back and forth, screaming.
Trevella Hara recalling the day the Gunnison County coroner called her with news about 3 bodies found near Gold Creek Campground. It was her family, her 14-year-old nephew, and her 2 stepsisters, Rebecca and Christine Vance.
The way they died was brutal. How can you die from starvation? It is one of the worst ways to go, and I can only imagine what was going through their heads.
About 1 year ago, Rebecca Vance told her stepsister that they were going off the grid forever.
She was fearful of the way the world was going, and she really thought she was protecting her son and Christine.
In preparation for their lifelong journey in the wilderness, Hara says they did most of their research on the internet, learning how they could survive through YouTube videos.
You can watch somebody rub 2 sticks together, but that's not enough. Looking at it, reading it, is totally different than actually doing it.
Without any tangible experience, Christine, Rebecca, and her teenage son embarked on their escape from society. This is the last known picture of them on their way out when they stopped at Hara's house to say their goodbyes.
I begged. My husband pretty much begs. We might as well have been on our hands and knees, telling them, please don't go. I was scared to death for them.
Based off the state of their bodies when they were found, the Gunnison County coroner estimated that they had been dead since January. Hara now just wants to protect the memory of her loved ones.
They weren't crazy at all. At all. They just really thought they could do it. So make sure you could do it before you go off the grid. Please.
Twisted Tales.